Thank you for joining us today for our Virtual Leaders panel, where we'll be discussing leading with compassion in sales. My name is Halpin. I lead LinkedIn Sales Solutions business here in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. The last 2 to 3 months have seen sales organizations everywhere undertake a remarkable pivot to the world of remote working. And it's more than just a change of working from home in order to survive and thrive in this new environment. Sellers have had to embrace digital selling and virtual relationship building and do so at a vastly accelerated pace. Changes that ordinarily may have taken months or years have literally taken place in days. And members of teams that might previously have opted out of them or proceeded cautiously and conservatively will no longer have or had a choice in this matter. This is a huge change to adjust to, and sales teams are adjusting to it at the same time as facing other pressing priorities as an overall result of this crisis. It's never been more important to invest deeply in strengthening customer relationships. It's never been more important to stay on top of what's happening at your key accounts. And many sellers who depended on face-to-face meetings or attending events to build relationships and pipeline are particularly challenged. All this adds up to a number of different sources of stress and pressure acting on sales teams at the same time. The effectiveness of any sales organization is going to depend on finding ways to empower their teams through this change and guide them towards building relationships virtually. At LinkedIn, we believe that compassion is critical to any sales leader's ability to do this. In this situation, compassion is not just about kindness. It's an invaluable element in your sales strategy that's crucial for helping your team and your customers evolve at the speed that they'll need to. Compassion involves anticipating and empathizing with the challenges and barriers your sales team and their customers now face, and what this will mean for them in their day-to-day experiences and interactions. It involves finding time to equip them with both the tools and the skills that they need to overcome these barriers, and it involves providing the practical and emotional support structures that any individual needs in order to be able to change the way they do things when they're surrounded by levels of uncertainty. I'd like to welcome to the panel today a group of sales leaders who I know have been exploring these issues with real purpose and dedication over the last few weeks, and I'm really excited to get their thoughts. Firstly, coming all the way from California, we have Jean-Claude Veolier, Executive Vice President and Head of the North American Tech Unit at Capgemini. We're also joined from London by Janine Chamberlain, Director of Talent Solutions at LinkedIn in the UK. And my last guest is Paul Terry, Director for New Business Sales for SMB and Mid-Market for LinkedIn Sales Solutions, and coming to us from Dublin. You're all very welcome, and thanks a million for joining us today. To start with, I wanted to ask you all for your views on the scale and the scope of the transition that we're dealing with here. It's tempting to think that when something changes so quickly in response to a crisis situation, that it can change back just as quickly. However, where digital selling is concerned, we're beginning to see data that tells a different story. In a recent McKinsey survey, more than 50% of sales organizations say that since the crisis, they found digital selling to be as or more effective than the traditional selling techniques they were depending on beforehand. And for this reason, the majority of those anticipate continue to spend on technology to support their sales teams working remotely into the future, either partially or wholly. Now, this appears to be a profound and secular shift in the world of sales. So, Jean-Claude, I'm going to come to you first on this. What's your view on how long-term this change is? Is this something that's affecting your planning? Or do you think this is something that will gradually return to what we used to call normal in the coming years?
Well, thank you, Liam. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be on this panel today. So I think for me, digital selling and digital marketing had already started. We were already investing. We were already transforming. I think what what COVID-19 has done and this crisis has done is really accelerate, the way we sell, accelerate the transformation on how we sell and how we market with our clients. I think digital selling is a long-lasting trend for sure, and I would say the share of digital selling will increase and is going to continue to increase as part of the whole selling umbrella that companies are doing. So I think in the past we were spending a lot of time in face-to-face meeting, in face-to-face discussions, in group discussions, and for now I think we have to we have to evolve to something. We have to evolve into work from home, create from home, sell and market from home. So it's a whole different way of managing clients. It's a whole different way of communicating, and I think it's definitely a long-term trend. It will not. I don't see us coming back to where we were before.
Interesting. And Paul, coming to you, in your role where your team are looking after medium and large customers in mid-market segment. But how are your team seeing those types of customers flexing at the moment? And similarly, Jean-Claude has indicated that he believes that it's not going back to normal. What are you seeing in your segments?
So we've absolutely seen a surge in what you would call more traditional elements, say of the economy, that may have relied heavily upon trade shows, face-to-face meetings, conferences, and from one day to the next, those avenues to market have literally been shut down. Now temporarily, but restricted for a significant period of time to come by all accounts. And these companies have actually really impressed me with the speed with which they have adapted, and are now furnishing their reps with different go-to-market approaches and strategies and supporting them in ways that they would not have given serious consideration to. So I think there's been a real step up. I think the European economy, and Europe is the area for which I'm responsible, so I can't comment elsewhere, but the European economy has really responded like a champ to these challenges thrown at them. If I think about how far we've come and how far we could go back, I actually think about it in a very visual way. I think about it like the tide coming in. And the tide has come in on virtual selling, virtual relationship building in a big way. And for sure, once the prime crisis passes, the tide will retract again a little bit, but I don't think it's going to go all the way out. And I think a lot of companies who have made these changes are going to stick with them because they've surprised themselves with the level of productivity and the relative ease with which they've been able to make those changes.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then Janine, you and your team, you look after some of the largest companies in the UK. What are you seeing in your own team? And what are you hearing and seeing with your customers?
Yeah, I think actually building on what both Jean-Claude and Paul have said, definitely think the changes are here to stay. That's also what I'm seeing with a lot of my customers. We were lucky to be in a situation where we already had access to so much in a digital way. So it wasn't that much of a shift. Some of my customers have had to literally do what you just explained, shift overnight. And I think in terms of that, how we move forward, I think of it just in the way as we look at offices. So we are going to go back to offices eventually, but we will use the space differently. We're not going to go back to enter an office, sit down, do our job in front of a computer screen the whole day and then go home again at the end of the day. We're going to go into an office to have conversations, to brainstorm, to really work together collaboratively on certain things. And that might not be 5 days a week. And I think that same rule will apply to the way that we engage with customers. And I think it's going to be driven by specific industries and how they will engage. So I think, for example, of more creative industries where the need to be together and to brainstorm will be much more strong and much more present than in other industries where it's easier to kind of connect remotely. So I think there will be some different nuances in that sense, but ultimately it will be a balance between digital and a different way of connecting face to face.
Interesting. And it is interesting. I've spoken to a number of large companies, and in some cases, those companies are talking about, not being willing to allow suppliers visit them for up to the next 12 months. Being conscious of the fact that unless there's or until there's an effective vaccine for COVID-19, that they don't want to put their employees at risk. So yes, so I think it's a very interesting time. But I share your views that we're not, what we refer to as normal. We're not going back there. We're going back to something which is more of a blend of what we have today plus what we used to. The other big subject then around this space is, we're all working from our homes. Some of us are fortunate enough to have space. Some are not. Some are juggling different situations, be it family situations, be it people who suffer from anxiety and other mental health conditions. So just in terms of thinking about the juggling, Jean-Claude, I can come back to you again. How are you finding working from home? In your situation, and what are some of the thematic challenges that you're seeing with your teams?
Yeah, I think we've seen incredible resilience from our employees. We've seen amazing creativity also. I think for example, we're driving business and IT transformation for our clients, and we have for example a specific environment like our accelerated solution environment we call ASE, which is where you just we used to physically meet in a physical space and for 2 days think about transforming the business of our clients. And obviously, not being able to meet face to face, we started, to say, how we're going to do this, moving forward, and we created this whole new methodology, which is basically do the same thing, which is transforming, program managing, a complete virtual environment. So we realized. And we realized that we could do exactly the same thing. We could define new business models. We could program manage. We could, define the future vision, on a very, very strategic initiative with our clients, but all in a virtual environment. And we had we are ready to push ourselves. I think we had to make sure that we were ready to change and make that happen. So I think for us, this crisis really created new ways of working, new ways of interacting between consultants, new ways of interacting with clients, and we actually figured out that sometimes being remote and a remote work could actually increase innovation. It's because you're balancing your professional life and your personal life in a different way. And we've seen a lot of creativity, we've seen a lot of innovation coming out of this work from home situation. So it's pretty amazing, one, how fast we have been able to adapt, and second, how people have been using that new way of working to the benefit of our clients, to the benefit of our partners, to the benefits of our employees. I think for me, it's been a fascinating experience for sure.
And can you share how you are personally adapting to the new environment? Because I assume you weren't personally remote previously. Any challenges moving your work life into your home?
Actually, personally, I've been in my career. I've been in many global roles. Where I've been driving, Asia Pacific business, European business, from here, from California. So for me, I was already used to work in a virtual environment with global teams around the world. So I would say it doesn't, personally, it hasn't changed a lot the way I work, the way I'm driving, teams around the globe. I think the only thing that has really changed is the lack of face to face with my clients, and my partners. But outside of that, I mean, the way I've been managing teams internally it has not been a big change. I think what's been said before, this notion of compassion, this notion of being close to people has definitely changed. I think we are talking more often, we are interacting more often. I've created this kind of a daily meet with my team. We are doing fun things like virtual wine and cheese. I'm originally from France, so I have to play with my strength. And yeah, we are doing virtual wine and cheese, and you need to increase the fun you have with your virtual team in creating new things that were not existing before. So for me personally, it has not been a big change if you think about it. So that's my personal experience.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, Paul, gonna come to you and talk to us about how you're having to flex, because ordinarily you would have been in our Dublin office most of the time when you're not visiting clients in the markets, and you've got quite a large team who work for you. Do you want to share some of your personal experiences and some of the things that you've seen happening with the team?
Sure, absolutely. Speaking on a personal basis first, on a huge plus, I saved myself a 45-minute commute or a 40-minute commute each way every day, which is great. That's time that I can dedicate to being with my family. So that's a plus. On the downside, there's a little bit of Groundhog Day seeping into my life. And in full transparency, there are mornings I wake up and I go, this is going to be hard. It's hard to get out of bed sometimes because I'm coming to the same space, looking at the same screen, lacking that human interaction that I was getting in a very busy, very hectic office environment. So it's mixed for me, and I think it's mixed for most people. And indeed, we did some surveys across LinkedIn, and we found that for the vast majority of people, it's exactly mixed. So there's a small minority who says working from home is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and a small minority that says I got to get back to the office fast. And everybody else says, you know what? There's good and there's bad. And I think we've very much we've let the genie out of the bottle here when it comes to remote versus office. We at LinkedIn, we have always had a very office-centric culture. I think we believed that for us to really get that DNA tight, we needed people to be near each other and rubbing off each other so that ideas and friction were happening. And that's absolutely, that's true. But it turns out that when you have to, and we did have to flip a switch, that the level of innovation and the level of mutual support that has been going on has really been inspiring. As you pointed out, Liam, I've got a team here in Dublin of about 65 people, and there are at least 65 different responses to what we've been going through. And I know that because I'm in the process of getting on the diary of each and every one person on my team, and I'm seeing a huge range of reactions to how this is going for people. Some people are thriving, they feel they're doing great. Other people are struggling. And a lot of the people on my team are not in their home country. They're not from Ireland. So they're living potentially in an apartment by themselves, or they're sharing a property with others who also are working in a similar industry. So you've got conference calls going on all day long. And that can be really, really difficult for people. And I'm not unaware of that. And how we address that is going to, I think, define who we all are as companies and who we all are as leaders. As we stay in this situation longer, you see situations developing. I've got at least 3 people on my team right now who they themselves are coming back from maternity leave, or their partner is coming back from maternity leave. And so you've got a situation where you now have two working parents and a baby in the house, in one case 6 months old, in another case 9 months old, and in a third case 12 months old, and they have no childcare. Now, the manager of those people can, bang their fist on the table and say, you owe me the time. If there's a meeting, I need you at the meeting. But there's very little point in doing that. And if the manager does not take a compassionate, understanding approach to this situation, then they shouldn't be a manager, and they're certainly not a leader. And so we're seeing responses that I think are defining an entire generation of leaders, and it's teaching compassion. And I think we're going to look back, and this is going to be a real, a formative experience for so many people in leadership positions today. I think it's a privilege to witness it. It's a privilege to be a part of it.
But just building on that, Paul, what you're talking about is, compassionate understanding, flexibility, putting yourself in the circumstances of the other person and trying to relieve the suffering that they're having. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So it's saying, look, I know that you are in an impossible situation. Something's got to give. That something can be us. That something can be work. So, let's talk about what your work schedule can look like to accommodate these extreme circumstances. And if you need me to take on some of that load, I will do so. If you need your colleagues to take on some of that load, or if you need me to reduce my expectations in the short to medium term, you know what, let's have that conversation. Because what I can't expect is full on dedicated, 40-hour a week and the results that come from that.
So this is not about 9 to 5. This is about flexibility. This is about ensuring that people are in the right headspace to be able to do their job, focus on what they need to do, and really getting that flexibility. Great.
Yeah.
And Janine, same question, same theme to you. Feedback or input on the same topic?
So I think what's interesting about everything that's just been said, there's not maybe that much more to add to it, apart from the empathy is quite easy to find right now, because we are all in the same situation, and not all in exactly the same situation. I understand the sort of nuances that Paul is talking about. And interestingly, if I look at my team, who are based out of London, where obviously commutes tend to be long for everyone, I actually have a third of people in my most recent survey who said that they would like to work from home for the foreseeable future, maybe permanently, which is interesting. And that's a little nuance, I think, to what Paul was talking about, and it's probably related to the stage of life that people are in, the location that they work in. But ultimately, we're all in the same situation, whether we have kids running around at home that, run in and out of your meetings, or pets, or maybe we have parents who are unwell, whether they are like local to us, not local to us, you can't visit them right now. And it's really important, I think, as leaders, that we keep in mind that everybody is actually working through so much at the same time right now. There is a pandemic. I don't want to underestimate the impact of what's been going on in the US and obviously all around the world over the last couple of weeks, the grief, the anxiety that people are feeling. So just really important to understand that everybody has a lot on their mind, and they can't just be focused on this one space of work, even though it is in a different space right now. But we are all going through it, so it's easier to understand. It's easier to feel what it is like to be in someone else's shoes at the moment, and I think that's incredibly helpful. And hopefully, we will take that. We will take that forward. Empathy was on the rise as one of the most important leadership skills and traits already, and this is accelerating that, and hopefully, we'll really cement it into leadership going forward.
Yeah, it really does sound like the compassionate, flexible leadership is something that we're going to be talking about for many years to come, versus where it's the other end of the spectrum where you're talking about command and control. I also think it's fascinating when you think that it's only in March of 2017 that Dr. Robert Kelly was given an interview for the BBC, and his two children came into the room, and it became a viral sensation that in the middle of a business and broadcast meeting, that became viral. Were it to happen to one of us right now, it'd just be another day at the office, as we say.
Absolutely.
And we would respond so differently. We would be just be like, oh yeah, here we go again.
And personally, I think it's a good thing. So then, one of the so it sounds like technology is playing a part in helping teams lean into this new world of work. But then on the flip side of that, we're also hearing about technology fatigue. So, people spending several hours a day staring into a screen, having to be much more attentive and try to build that sort of digital connection. How are we thinking about helping our teams flex to that? Because in the two things I've heard about it is sort of technology fatigue, but also then helping our teams to understand, where is that break point between work and home. In fact, Paul, you mentioned your 45-minute commute. I had a similar commute, and I used to view that going to and coming from time in my car, where I'm listening to the radio or an audiobook as my decompression and compression time between those two places. How are we thinking about supporting our managers in that space? Jean-Claude, if I can come to you.
Yeah, I think you have to, as a leader, you have to be a role model in that space. I think you have to encourage work-life balance. You can launch some initiatives around the number of steps that your team is going to walk or run in a certain month of the year, right? I think you need to be you need to be open. You need to provide leadership in that space. The other thing you need to do that I'm doing is celebrate success, right? Because this work from home has created, again, new models, new ways of working, and therefore you need to encourage and you need to celebrate when people are successful in this new environment. And we are, for us, means maybe selling a new project, or a delivery success where we had this very complicated program and we went live on time, client is happy about it, and we you need to celebrate that. So once you celebrate, then people will say, okay, oh, I didn't know we could do that, or this is something I've not done. I've not been thinking about this. So again, it's a mix of encouraging work-life balance and at the same time celebrate success. That's my experience in the past 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, then that walking the walk and setting an example is for me I think it's super important for all leaders, because in terms of taking time off, being vulnerable and sharing the challenges that you've had as an individual. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. For example, I will finish with that, but it's a very concrete example. For example, I'm a runner, so I'm trying to run every day. Of course, you need to adjust with your calendar, but if the team sees that you're spending time, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, per day, going and walking and running, then you send a clear message to your team that again, work-life balance is important, right? And you need to preserve this, in order to avoid the Groundhog Day effect that Paul was talking about. Otherwise, if you don't go out, if you don't exercise, if you don't have a work-life balance, then long term you can it could be a problem, right?
Yeah. I love that, you know, sharing that with your team as well. So Janine, come to you. Same story. How are you helping your team avoid the digital fatigue?
Absolutely. So I think it's been through a number of different stages. But where I think as leaders we can really make an impact is help our teams prioritize what they should or shouldn't attend, and actually give some freedom in terms of certain meetings. So, for example, there are people who love to be on a call with the whole team every day, or with me every day. There are people who really do not need that, who don't want that. And so giving some freedom in what you attend or what you allow people to kind of make the choice to attend, I think that's really important, because you don't want digital presenteeism to kind of become the new normal. I think it's really important to avoid that. And then the other thing is just offering options in how people actually attend meetings when they do attend. So I take quite a lot, I say a lot, maybe that's not exactly true, but I try to take walking calls. And even if I have a one-to-one, to agree, let's both go on a walk. It's been beautiful weather as well, so we've been lucky that way. Let's both go for a walk, and then we just talk instead of sitting, you know, in front of a screen. Again, another Zoom call. I think they can be extremely draining, but actually merging it with something that you would have normally done in an office environment as well. You would have gone, let's go and grab a coffee. We'll go outside for a bit. So continuing to maybe do some of those things to help people really balance that. I think those are some really actionable things for leaders to take away and help their teams avoid that fatigue.
Fantastic. And again, you know, literally in your situation, walking the walk by going for a walk. Paul, anything to add on this one?
Well, look, +1 on everything the guys have said, but I'm going to take a somewhat controversial angle and tell you that I've actually been cautioning my managers a little bit, because many of my managers have young families, young kids, and they felt a strong need, these managers, to really be present and to be there for their team. So there was a lot of, you know, evening wine and cheese events, like Jean-Claude, like you've described, or quizzes, or happy hour drinks or whatever. And these would, you know, typically take place after office hours. And I had to caution the managers and say, you know, there, you know, on your own emotion bank and energy bank, you're making withdrawals, and your family is paying for those withdrawals, right? They're not zero sum, right? Or rather, they are zero sum, but they're not victimless. And you need to get that balance right. I have huge admiration that my managers are there for their teams, but they have to be there for their families as well. And I've literally been talking them out of doing some of these evening type events because I felt that the strain on them was too great.
But it does sound like it's encouraging the individual balance that, you know, some people, you know, I love your reference to energy banks or batteries, that, you know, it's making sure that you're not draining yourself, leaning in where you need to lean in. So there's some great stuff in there. I want to pivot to skills, and, you know, one of the things that this environment necessitates us all to be able to do probably better than before is active listening, because clearly, you know, in these environments you have to actively listen. The second thing then is, before the pandemic, we did some research at LinkedIn, and what we found was that in the B2B relationship sales space, that over 55% of sellers relied on in-person meetings in terms of building relationships. How are you thinking about helping your teams through now having to A, actively listen, and B, not rely on face-to-face so much? Paul, can we come back to you on this one?
Sure. So, you know, I suppose we had somewhat of a head start. So I lead a centrally located sales organization, which means all of my teams are based here in Dublin, but travel to their markets around Europe. Now, we used to try to get that travel balance right so that they weren't on the road all the time. and that they were making the most of their travel time. So a significant portion of their work was already being delivered remotely, albeit from a centralized office, but remote to the client. So active listening, actually my reps do that better than I do. I'm very easily distracted, and I've had a really tough time to stay focused on conference calls and video conferences when, you know, the other person can't see if I'm checking my mail. And I have to keep myself more honest than I used to have to. But where the real challenge comes for me and my team is that the ability for the managers to coach their teams has become harder. And so we are looking at technologies and tools, which perhaps I'll reference them later on. But it's the coaching skills that I'm drilling into to try to ensure that those reps are not suffering by the distance that they now have between them and their client, or them and their manager, pardon me. But engaging their clients remotely has not been a problem for my team, because they've been doing it so much anyway.
So it's really the managers leaning on coaching as a skill to help the team members with the change in circumstance. Jean-Claude, how about you and your team?
So I think that's where I think digital selling and digital marketing is, you know, takes, I think the whole I think the entire way of you know, working. I think active listening for me is making sure that, you know, you're absolutely connected to the strategic issues of your clients and the issues of your employees, right? So this, more than ever, connecting digitally is very important. And you know, I've been rolling out Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Sales Navigator 4 or 5 years ago here in North America, and definitely this digital connection has been really important for you know, staying connected with your client, really making sure that you know, not only you know, you're messaging you know, to your clients and your partners, you know, your strategic offers, but really getting in touch, you know, getting access to key decision makers, and therefore really understand where the market is going, where your clients are going. So you want your sales teams to be connected at all levels in the account. And I think again, using Sales Navigator has been for me a way of you know, really understanding how digitally connected I am with my clients. And I think this partnership with LinkedIn has been really helpful for me to have a better sales organization. And also something that I've seen in the market, which is important, is you know, the true collaboration between sales and marketing. I've seen this many times at my clients. I've seen that also internally, where, you know, marketing is creating you know, a marketing campaign. There are some leads, and the leads are not followed up by the sales teams. And I think we've launched a number of initiatives around active listening, around digital selling and digital marketing, where sales and marketing have been working hand in hand to be absolutely consistent across our clients, across our markets. So for me, again, this is all about listening to your clients, be connected to the strategic issues of your client, and also we create new offerings. We have been creating new offerings during this period because we know clients have been struggling with, you know, with their client relationships, with their supply chain, and now the question is, you know, after this COVID-19 crisis, what's next? You know, how people are going to restart their supply chain across the globe. So there is a lot of new offerings we're creating, and for us, active listening has been really key in the way we are managing the business.
Interesting. And Janine, you know, looking at the skills that your team need to have in this new world? What's your view?
Yeah, so we were already in the middle of a multi-year program around sales competencies, and active listening clearly is one of them. But ultimately, the program is based on understanding where each of the different sellers are at, and then helping them to develop specific skills that really they need to further develop. And I think it's really interesting what Jean-Claude was just saying, because what I found, and it relates to active listening and understanding customers' businesses, is that right now, a lot of customers, because we're all in this new situation, we're all searching for information and understanding how we navigate this new landscape. There's never been a better time to really listen to customers. There's never been a better time to have those in-depth conversations. And when I think about the sellers, I believe it comes down to belief gaps and confidence of having those conversations in a different environment than you used to have them. So be it remote, be it over a video call, instead of over maybe a nice lunch and a dinner, right? And I think that as long as people can overcome that belief gap that we need to see someone face to face, we need to see the body language, we need to be able to wine and dine, I think that's actually the biggest maybe struggle right now, the biggest gap to overcome, rather than any specific skill, because that's going to be dependent on each of the individual sellers and where they are at in their careers.
Can I just jump in actually and add that, there's one big advantage that's come to us from this situation, which is that I find it incredibly humbling to be literally invited into the home of every one of the clients with whom I speak, and they are invited into mine. Because this is my home behind me, and for all of you, it's the same as well. And for every one of our clients with whom we have a video conference right now, it's the same. And that's a real leveler. And I find that quite invigorating as a development. And I think it helps create a bond even more quickly than when meeting in really professional settings.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's more personal, you mean, Paul, right? It's more personal.
Yes, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And Janine said, around the empathy piece, there's no greater demonstration that we're all in this together than I can see your house and you can see mine.
Yeah. Also, I think I really like, Paul, this angle, because I personally think, and it's been actually easier. It's because before, everybody, your clients were always traveling, and it was very difficult to get a meeting. I found in some situations it's actually easier to connect digitally to somebody, to a client, to a partner, because first you need less time, and it's easier to engage. So I think I've seen in some situation a better, easier to connect with your clients. I don't know if you notice the same thing.
Yeah.
But you don't have the burden of traveling, driving, flying anymore. So I think in some situation, again, it's been easier for me.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It's much more efficient because also, like you said, you need less time, not just because you're not traveling physically to a location, but if you do travel to a location, then you might as well have an hour or 90 minutes of a meeting. And now you just jump on a call, it might be half an hour, you get the same out of it.
Yeah.
And it just saves so much time. So I totally agree with that. And that's my experience as well.
Happy days.
Great.
Yeah.
And so then just thinking about another dimension. So clearly, Jean-Claude, Capgemini have a significant investment in digital selling and skills.
Yeah.
For people who are on this webinar, who are much earlier in their journey, and in many cases have been thrust into this by the current crisis, have you a couple of words for advice about how to stay on the path and how to make that path as less bumpy as possible?
Yes, absolutely. So first, you have to believe. You have to believe that it's going to work, right? You have to believe that it's going to work. Then it's a lot of change management. So it's not about technology, right? When you roll out, Sales Navigator, for example, in your organization, you gotta make sure that everybody's ready to change. Everybody's ready to use the amazing features you have in Sales Navigator. Everybody's so you gotta organize your organization such as you have somebody who's program managing this in your organization. You have to also show again, to be a role model and show the example. For example, when I have some reviews of deals, when I have reviews of business, I'm challenging my team about how digitally connected they are with their clients or with their partners. And show your team that this is important to have this digital connection, or challenge your team about did you run a digital sales campaign on that specific topic to this specific set of clients or set of prospects. So you gotta believe, and you have to show your organization that this is the way you need to go, and this is how you're gonna get there. That's my experience, Liam.
So it's not just a case of going out and buying some tools and
No.
delivering the sales for people and saying, now you're digitally transformed,
Yeah.
get on with it.
Yes.
Change the end-to-end process. And what I heard was changing the sorts of questions that managers ask based on the new environment.
Absolutely. Right? And you need to show the example. I mean, you need to lead by example, meaning that we all know why we lose or win some sales, and with tools like Sales Navigator, you can really see how connected you were with your client, even compared to competition. LinkedIn is providing you some competitive comparison, how digitally connected you are with your client. So you can see, as you're driving through a sales process, you can absolutely see the impact of social selling, of digital selling and digital marketing, during your sales cycle. So with all these tools, you can drive the change in your organization. But technology is small aspect of it. The big aspect is how do you change habits? How do you make sure that you're moving towards, again, as I was saying, more connection between sales and marketing, more connection with your clients, and make sure that you are using this technology to really improve the intimacy with your clients.
Yeah, I have a small anecdote that I often tell customers. It's funny but true. Back in the 1970s, my dad bought my grandfather a TV with a remote control. There used to be a time when TVs didn't come with remote controls. But my grandfather didn't change his process. So what he used to do is he would leave the remote control on top of the TV, and then when he needed to turn up the volume or change the channel, he would walk to the TV, use the remote, put it back on the TV, and then walk back to his chair. So even though he had been enabled by the technology, because he didn't change his process, he wasn't getting the benefit. So true story. Paul, you're clearly Capgemini is a large company, and dealing with large companies. Your team are seeing companies with between 10 and 200 salespeople all across Europe. Any short advice for a medium-sized business currently thinking about how to accelerate and support their teams through this?
For me, it's a classic. Don't underestimate it, right? It may be necessary, but it's still not easy. It's a classic change management exercise. And if you want to know how to lead a change management exercise, There's lots of resources out there. You can Google them, whatever. But 101 is appoint an executive sponsor, appoint somebody who really cares about this and believes in it. That's somebody that everybody else listens to. Identify the metrics that you want to lean on, and start gamifying and reminding people about why it's important. But I think of all the times to do it, and I've been reading the comments. I told you I was like easily distracted. I was reading the comments that participants are adding here on the side, and there's a lot of comments of people saying there's never been a better time to embrace digital because the wind is at our backs right now, and that's absolutely true. So if you're trying to push this within your own organization, there's never been a better time. People are going to listen to you because they have very little alternative. Yeah. So strike now.
Okay. Janine, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it comes down, in my opinion, to a cultural change, right? The habits, the processes, the systems, it's part of it, but it's the culture that needs to change for everybody to embrace it. And, exactly what Paul was just saying, I'm hearing this from a lot of our customers as well, that making changes right now is actually almost, it's surprising people how quickly they are able to affect change in this current period. And whether it's digital related or not actually doesn't matter. I was talking to someone, a chief people officer recently, who was really talking about big cultural changes that they had been discussing for years. And every time, there was some resistance maybe from somewhere, not everybody was aligned, we weren't quite sure. And then a crisis like this hits. And all of a sudden, maybe it is because there are very few alternatives, but all of a sudden it just mobilizes everybody to really deliver and execute against things that they've been planning for years, that they thought would take years, and then they actually managed to do it in the space of 4 weeks, which I find really remarkable. So I agree that this is just a perfect time to drive change, regardless of what the change is.
Great. Okay, so thank you for that. We're going to switch to some of the live Q&A. So Dania has been very kindly filling in the a sheet in front of me. So I'm going to flick to reading. So question here, and I'd open it up to the panel to answer it. So what's the one piece of tangible advice from the sales leaders to increase your team's morale in a remote environment? And we've heard about cheese and wine and quizzes, etc. So who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to jump in. The one thing that I will take with me for hopefully the rest of my career is to connect with my entire team every day. So my team is about 35 people overall. It's not mandatory because I already said I don't really like to enforce too many mandatory meetings, but people can drop in whenever they want. And the consistent feedback has been that the team has never felt more connected than they do now. And I will keep this going even after we go back into an office, because I think it's just been such a great way for me to hear directly from people what's on their mind in the moment that it is on their mind, not when we're waiting for a survey to come out or when we actually have some specific dedicated one-to-one time. It's coming out in the moment that I need to hear it and I can actually, take action and pivot. So that for me is the single most important thing right now.
Great.
If I may add, I would just add and say, from my perspective, I find that being authentic about how you yourself are feeling. Now, just you're not going to get on your call and cry your eyes out to your team all the time, but for them to know that you're authentically telling them the truth about how you feel, and that means when you're having a bad day, tell them, and then they feel liberated to have bad days and not feel that they're failing or they're weak as a result of that. So just bring your authentic self to those calls and to your meetings, and counterintuitively, morale goes up as a result.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I think being authentic is really critical. Being authentic, and again, encourage work-life balance. Be a role model in this area. I think, and the daily connect. I cannot agree more than with Janine. I'm doing it. The daily connect is super important for me. Just
as another question, so So this question is around, do you find that a fear of a rebound in the virus later on in the year is causing decisions to be delayed, and what do you think about it? Before I throw it to the panel, I've actually got a perspective on this myself, is that, what we saw with a number of customers, particularly customers who are in areas that have been immediately and directly impacted. One that stands out for me is an events company in the UK. And clearly, if your business is about face-to-face events, you're clearly challenged right now. And instead of going into a sort of a frozen fear perspective, what we saw that business do was, refocus on the medium and long term, in that many of the events that they were involved in organizing were already pre-sold for this year or pre-organized for this year. And the sorts of events that we organize are normally they're selling and scoping for next year, the year after, and in fact, in many cases, 3 to 5 years out. So their reaction was, instead of over-indexing around what's happening now, focus on the medium, focus on the long term. And actually, by orienting their team in that direction, they've been able to actually increase the motivation and keep focused on their longer term business objectives. So my advice to people is, don't get paralyzed by the now. Focus on what's important in the medium and long term, and also helping your team focus on that. What about the panel? Any views on that?
I would say I haven't heard a lot of paralysis taking place because of a fear of a rebound of the virus. When this thing kicked off first, for sure, if I look at the clients and the prospects with whom we were dealing, there was a pause. We're going to see how this plays out. But very quickly, there was a realization that either it's going to get better or it's going to get worse, or it's going to get better and then worse again, or any of the above. But either way, we have to make decisions, and we have to start building a resilient organization that can accommodate any or all of these scenarios. And so I've seen an agility come about in our clients. As you pointed out, I'm dealing with SMB and mid-market, so not the very, very large corporations, but I'm seeing an agility and a realization that regardless of what the future holds, they need to be more resilient than they were. And decisions are being taken based on those premises.
Okay.
Yeah, I think flexibility and agility is key because we don't know, right? We have to deal with this uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to be able to run marathons again, right? all the marathons, the running marathons have been canceled since March. So I think you have to be ready to deal with that uncertainty, and I think you almost have to have I would say a pretty nice dashboard of what's happening in your company, and in order to really react to what's happening with my clients, what's happening with my supply chain, what's happening with my what's happening with my people. So I think as a CEO of a company, you gotta make sure that you are ready almost to drive your company on a real-time basis. And this is not easy. This is absolutely not easy. Some people are doing better than others. But truly, for me, it's about managing uncertainty and managing risk moving forward, and also seizing opportunities. Make sure that you know really what's happening in your company. For me, that's key.
Yeah, I think it's almost coming full circle. So Jean-Claude's talking about having the insights, knowing what's happening inside your company. I think that also extends to knowing what's happening in your landscape. What are your competitors doing? How are they responding? And to me, a great indicator is understanding what's happening in the world of skills. And we were just talking about skills of our sellers. Where are we investing now? and where should we be investing for the future? And what a great opportunity to invest in those skills right now, especially if there is some slowdown in certain areas of some businesses. I think that is critical. So we need to really have those insights to understand where do we think it is going. But we need to have those insights on an ongoing basis so that if it changes again, we can pivot and be agile, flexible. So it's almost coming full circle for me in that sense.
So sadly, folks, we could talk about this for hours and hours. That's all we unfortunately have time for today. Jean-Claude, I want to thank you. Janine.
Thank you, Liam.
Great discussion. Thank you for joining us. Big shout out to Jean-Claude for joining us at this time, West Coast USA. We appreciate the early morning, truly global call. Thanks to everybody who joined the call. Danny and our production crew behind the scenes. Everybody take care, and we look forward to seeing you at our next show in a couple of weeks' time. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.